It's cold outside. Good job. Everyone, I think you all owe yourselves a round of applause. Yeah? Okay, come on.
We love DevTO.
Oh, we do love DevTO. I love DevTO. I've been coming here for ages, and I always get blown away at how many great minds are here, how many great ideas, and great people I meet. So it's really cool to be here chatting. So my name is Ziyan, and in 1 second, there we go. These are some of the things I like. I work with a company called QNext. I work on marketing and product strategy, and I just love interactive media in general, product and business strategy. So today, I'm going to talk a little bit about file sharing and where it's heading, and the emergence of the private cloud. Both are two things that are going to have a fair amount of impact in the way people deal with their clients, the way people transmit data in the near future. I just want to talk about a few trends that we've been noticing over the course of researching our product. So I'm going to go over some media consumption habits of people, some of the methods of storage, and the evolution of file sharing. So one thing is that people have always loved to create and share media since the dawn of time. Since the first wall post in the year 32,000, people have loved sharing and creating. These are actually part of the cave paintings. I don't know if anyone's seen Werner Herzog's documentary on the Cave of Dreams. It's stunning how amazing and articulate people were from that time, and how great the cave painting and artwork were. And from there we moved on to the modern day, where this is our wall post. So, but I digress. Bottom line is, now we are always sharing tons of files, petabytes. I mean, it's not like a petabyte, but 1,024 terabytes per month. Tons of videos are getting shared, and 89 million people in the US are going to watch 1.2 online. The number blows my mind, and you wonder why the economy is not doing so well. Tons of pictures, 300 million on Facebook, photos on Facebook every day. That's like 2 jumbo jets. If you fill them to the brim with Polaroids, that would be it. I don't know how people arrived at that stat, but that is right. Every day, 60 hours is the amount of video that gets uploaded to YouTube, every minute. So you're looking at about an hour of video every second, and 500 years of YouTube video are watched every day, just on Facebook. This is excluding any external traffic. So what you're gathering from there is that people really love to share. Like, they really, really love it. Now, it could, some of it is, I suspect, an element of narcissism. Some of it is legitimate utility-based sharing. There's a purpose. But if you look at the stats here, Facebook users, I mean, the entire purpose of Facebook. Can everyone hear me okay, by the way?
Yes.
Okay, amazing. And does everybody have a drink? More importantly. Yeah? Good to go? Amazing. Cheers, guys. So, we're looking at Facebook users, 1.15 billion. Now, I think most people here work in development and the startup sector, right? So we hear these numbers getting thrown around all the time. Oh, 287 million users, $3 billion, 1 million users. But have you actually stopped to think about, when you look at a room, how many people that would be? That is a bloody huge amount of people. And this is all people who are sharing files. So you're looking at Google Drive with their 287 million, SkyDrive with their 250 million. Dropbox I thought would have had more, but they're at 175 million. So you basically get the idea that people have a lot of media, they create a lot of media, and they really, really, really want to share it with people. So this brings us to the next segment. People have a ton of media that they create, they carry around with them, and they share. Now, that's cool, that's great. Now, the thing is that as we move around, how many of you own more than one device with a screen? Just by a show of hands.
Come on.
Right? Okay. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. In the US, about a quarter of the population has 5 or more devices connected to a Wi-Fi setup at home. That's a quarter of the population, and that's a lot of people. And when we use multiple screens, we use them in different ways. It's in various combinations, depending on what people are doing. The overwhelming majority goes towards using a smartphone and television at the same time. About a bit over 50% goes for a smartphone and a laptop. And then there's the odd power users who use all three. Now, I mean, this is most prominent when you look at the Grammys and you have everybody tweeting and watching TV at the same time, which also made Arby's the most talked about brand in the world today. Who ever thought Arby's would be the most talked about brand in the world? Did any of you think that? No. And can anyone here please explain that hat? Because I haven't been here long enough and I would like to know.
All I know is that I looked at it and I went, that God, that was stupid.
Yeah.
You lost that.
Okay, so now there's a couple of different ways that people use their multiple screens. One is sequential usage. So people move from one device to another at different times to accomplish a task. So they start up, they're on the road, and they look, suppose you look at a new Mercedes going by. And you're like, oh wow, what model is that? And look it up. Look up some photos, you find the model. Then you go home, because looking at a small screen is tough, and you hopefully shouldn't be doing that while driving. And you go home, you look it up. Then there's simultaneous usage, which leads to Arby's becoming a huge brand. Multitasking, unrelated activity, or complementary usage. And now you'll notice a lot of television shows, especially on HBO and the like, are really producing content catered for multiple screens. Have any of you guys watched any of these shows? Showcase or HBO? So it's a really novel idea. It ties into people's demand for it. You have people, I find it a little bit silly, to be honest, because there's so much content coming at you, but at the same time, a lot of people also thought camera phones were silly when they first were introduced. So, who knows? I think that there is potential for a lot of utility, finding a lot of behind-the-scenes information, production notes, what have you, whatever the producer deems fit. So, there's a lot you can do, especially as far as advertising is concerned. And in the next few years, you're going to see a lot of utilities coming out in this realm, allowing people to find a lot more out about products, about the things that they're watching on their screens, so on and so forth. So, in theory, it all sounds great, right? But when you have multiple devices and you're juggling between them all the time, this was inspired by a real-life experience yesterday. Where is my bloody presentation? It happens. You're working on it at the office computer, or you're working on the part of it at home. Where's your version saved? Where is it? I don't know. So when you're looking at, this is compounded, I think, by the fact that it's so easy to travel nowadays. We have client meetings in Madrid. We have clients scattered around multiple countries, and heaven help you if you forget the device. There are ways around it, but it can be problematic if you're not very diligent about backing up and diligent about putting your stuff where it's meant to go. So the thing is, why don't we use Dropbox or Google Drive, right? Those are really popular scenarios. How many of you use Dropbox or Google Drive here in the room by show of hands? How many use both? Okay. What do you like most about either one?
Dropbox that I can share it to multiple people. I can put it on my desktop, and same thing with here is here.
Right.
No matter where I go, it's exactly the same thing.
Cool. And yourself? Yeah.
I think they are pretty similar. I like Dropbox on my phone, but I use Google Drive more on my computer.
On your computer. Why is that?
I just find it more convenient.
The Google Docs.
Yeah.
Nice. So, we're finding it.
And also my phone, Samsung automatically backs up to Dropbox, not necessarily just Google.
Right.
So that's another reason why I just started using it more often.
Have any of you guys ever had a problem with running out of space on your Dropbox?
When I signed up, I got another 20 gigs.
25 gigs with your phone? That's amazing. How do you
I'm up
defend
to like 75 gigs now on Dropbox.
Amazing.
It gave me, like I said, another
I'm
25 on
talking to you
Samsung.
after we're done. So,
Yeah.
but the thing is, though, that for a lot of people, if you're looking at average file sizes of projects, an average video that's taken with your iPhone, if you're using a 5 and up, it goes, an average is about 2.2 to 2.4 megabytes. HD video If you're ripping a DVD, you're looking at 4.75 gigabytes, or 750 megabytes on the average, and that's at a consumer level. Now, if you're looking at companies that are editing film, working with advertisements, and you're looking at very high volume video, audio, or even work pertinent to imaging, you're looking at a tremendous amount of data. And I find that from talking to most people in the industry, the amounts that Dropbox and Google Drive and these other cloud-based scenarios issue is nowhere near enough, nowhere near what they need. And costs are really prohibitive too. I mean, Flickr now offers a terabyte of free space, but if you want to go up to 2 terabytes, that will cost about $500 per year. If you break it out, yes, it's probably not that much, but it's a fair amount of money. I mean, especially if you're looking at buying hard drives, carrying that around. So the cost, the capacity, ease of sharing, and security. Because even if you're sharing something with someone, email, I mean, we can exclude it when we're talking about higher volume media files. You're not, I mean, when's the last time you guys tried to email a video file to somebody? Doesn't really happen. If you use something like Dropbox, yes, it's contingent upon the other person having space on their Dropbox. And security. Security is a huge problem. Just look at some of the headlines just from the last little bits. There's these guys, like especially at an enterprise and corporate level, when you're entrusting your data to a third party, there's always so many inherent risks at bay. Not to say that, I mean, it could happen anywhere, but these companies, probably in part due to their size, tend to get targeted and hit a lot, and that's really no good for your endpoint consumer. You tend to lose a lot of information. So we're starting to notice a huge shift in the way people share files and the way people deal with them. So we're looking at our email disks and USB. I don't know if any of you remember the 8-inch floppies. Where you had double as a dinner tray. It's, those stored about 700K, a whopping 700K. People figured, what would you do with a meg? I remember when my buddy bought a computer back about 15, 20 years ago. I'm like, what are you going to do with a gig of RAM? I was so jealous. A gig of RAM? Yes, a gig of RAM. Look now. And we moved on to public cloud providers like Google Drive, Dropbox, Box, SkyDrive, and what have you. But almost about 70% of the people we surveyed and interviewed who were dealing with large volume files found it problematic. Record labels were complaining about their albums getting leaked. Same with film studios. It's an inherent problem all the time, and that's why it's bad for the consumer, it's bad for the artist, it's really bad for the producer. We get a substandard quality product, unmixed audio, song titles, things that weren't meant to be there. Sometimes we get really good stuff. You know, it goes both ways, but mainly it's for the negative. Now, the private cloud is where we're really heading at. And the industries that look to benefit the most from this, there are tons, but these are the main few. So it's film editing, music composition, medical imaging, seismic mapping, legal institutions, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. What all of these guys have in common is that they require a lot of data being sent back and forth, whether you're talking about legal institutions and things going between the client and the army of people gathering facts, and then you're looking at film editing and music composition. You've often got people remotely scattered, you're sending around data. It can be a pain in the ass to email or use Dropbox for everything. So, how many of you guys are familiar with the private cloud? 1, 2, 3. No, how many of you are familiar with the private cloud? Okay. Yay. No worries. So it's things are heading that way. It offers a tremendous amount of flexibility. Private cloud, basically, just like Dropbox and Google Drive, they're public clouds. They exist as a third-party entity whom you entrust with your data. Private cloud operates within a building. It can be within a physical structure, within a corporation, and you have a lot more flexibility over the security, over the storage sizes, and everything's kind of based on you. And if something goes wrong, you only have yourself to blame, which is, again, good and bad. But it is where a lot of people are moving nowadays, especially in light of, if you guys are familiar with Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, and the amount of information that comes out about snooping and spying. It's funny because I used to think before that, oh wow, like, there are so many entry points for people to spy on you. I'm being paranoid, forget it. But then when I started doing research, I wasn't paranoid enough. And it's really mind-blowing. If you check out our website and our Twitter, and I encourage you guys to do so, you'll find a link at the end. And we've gotten a fair amount of press with the information security community, the privacy community, and the like. There is a lot of stuff going on online involving surveillance and data being tapped that most people, ourselves included, were not aware of initially. And it's quite enlightening. So enter the private cloud, and almost every major manufacturer of hardware has jumped on board and are creating solutions geared at the private cloud enablement. So from routers to hard drives to processors to computers. People are taking steps to ensure that people are more in control of their data. And some of the types of hardware you can see are network-attached storage devices. So you attach a hard drive to your router, smart Wi-Fi routers and mobile devices, smart TV. The current iteration are not that smart, but you still have them. Internet appliances. The benefits, you can read it, but you have access to your data anytime, anywhere. It's simple to deploy, easy to recover, it's cheap. And one of the huge benefits, is especially when you look at hybrid cloud. So you have the ability to use any device, your mobile, your desktop, your laptop, to connect to and access anything, anywhere, at any time. You could be running late to a presentation that you're working on at your laptop. You might decide that, okay, I don't want to take my laptop. It's snowing outside, you're in the middle of a stupidly named polar vortex. And we're racing, I don't want to slip on the ice and break my laptop. So, what am I going to do? I'll take my iPad. But bloody hell, do I want to go into iTunes and sync and figure out a way to get my files on there, especially because Apple's made things so hard to get things on? No. Just use, I say this as if it was a thing, but you can use one of these hybrid cloud solutions to connect to whether you've got your files stored on your Dropbox, your Google Drive, your computers, your NAS, your FTP servers. You can connect to it and access right away on the fly. And I think it's wonderful. It fits in really well to our current lifestyle where we all have multiple devices. We're always on the go. We're working in fairly dynamic environments. And you can just have what you want. And full disclosure, we do build one such solution, but I'll leave that till after to find out. But what we do well, and what people haven't done yet, is that there are no file size limits to what can be transferred. No storage limits, no uploads, no restrictions on content. Nothing gets degraded because there's no compression. That's one huge thing about Dropbox and the like for creation of media and audio. I'm keeping this up here on purpose just so that you guys get a chance to read it, and I think it's a great prize, so you guys would want to get in on that. So it's great. You can deal with files in their original format. Just take them, and you get some cool apps. Don't just take a picture, do something with it.
Come on, be awesome.
You pay to be awesome.
We'll put that up on that wall.
Did you guys all see it?
Yeah.
I took a picture.
You take a picture. Yours. Okay, amazing.
Lately done.
So that's pretty much it as far as presentation goes. Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah. Are there any limitations to the private cloud we were talking about?
I would argue that in life almost anything has limitations. So
Yeah, that's not the answer I'm looking for. Actually, I was thinking you will have to depend on the upload speed of your internet connection to make it work. With Dropbox, Google Drive, you don't have to worry about that. But with your own private cloud, your upload speed is usually the bottleneck.
yes and no. Because when you're dealing with something like Dropbox and you're uploading up to their server, you are still dependent on your access to the internet. And if you're using a slow connection, you will get slow speeds. And that, I would class that under...
But that's only one direction.
Other
When
direction.
you're in a private cloud,
Yeah. Yes.
The hybrid cloud, though, on the download from Dropbox
Precisely. When you're using a hybrid cloud and you're connecting to a public cloud provider, those bottlenecks are eliminated and you're working with them. But unfortunately, it is a case of you get what you put in the sense of access to internet pipe.
Yeah, that's why I would argue the private cloud does have a lot of limitations that you didn't talk about today. For example, you have to supply your own power solution, just in case your building go without power. And then what do you do when you need your file? With Google Drive, with Dropbox, you don't have this kind of concern because the dedicated teams make sure the files are always there.
Yes and no, because when you're dealing with a third party, you're always dealing with things that are at risk. Like just the day before yesterday, I don't know if any of you got hit, but Gmail had gone out for a while. Yeah, I can see nods. People got hit. I couldn't access a lot of my presentations and files for a couple of hours. And
I would argue that the failure rate it will be much higher on those much lower on those services. Probably a little bit higher on your own private cloud.
But what are you basing that information on?
Based on the resources and Google's resources, I totally believe probably your resources is not as extensive as Google's.
It depends on provider to provider, and when you're looking at scale of resources, you're looking at Google, which serves millions of people, and you're looking at your own private cloud, which maybe serves 50 people. So when you're comparing scale and you're scaling down, it's actually not nearly as unreliable as people think. I agree with you though. At first glance, I'd be like, damn, should I trust it to Google or should I do it myself? Right? No, sometimes you can do a pretty great job using your own resources.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm not disputing all the positives you mentioned. I just want to point out there's the other side to the story.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. It's just that for the purpose of this, and you notice, I was just simply touching upon that scenario. And we have white papers and the like uploaded where you're invited to find out more and you can read more about the drawbacks and limitations.
Do you ever come across customers interested about data residency? I know that you had medical records on the slide. Where is everything?
Oh, when it comes to electronic medical records in Canada, we're still looking at a stage where it's in its nascency. There's a lot of bickering back and forth between organizations like eHealth and the like, and there's still no standardized approach to how companies will deal with their data, especially medical data. There's plenty of output. It's just that people are fighting over ownership, people are fighting over formats. So as of yet, we haven't had too many customers talk about this yet because I've worked on many medical projects in the past, and they have yet to arrive at a standard that the entire federal government is satisfied with here in Canada, and in the US it's even much more fragmented than that.
Out of curiosity, any idea, thoughts on privatizing or sort of making more secure the public cloud? I mean, is there anything like an application you could run on top that would encrypt and decrypt the data that you store on the cloud so that if that gets compromised, there's no danger, but you still can have the redundancy and speed of the public cloud?
It's an option, absolutely. If you were to encrypt your files at your end using software and uploading it there, and so you can have an encrypted record. However, that doesn't save your records like passwords and usernames and credit card information from being compromised because you're reliant upon their infrastructure for doing so. So right now, if you're looking at the major hack that happened recently with Adobe or Dropbox a few months ago, it was user information, credit card details, and all that were logged. And just a few days ago, they arrested a bunch of people with about, I don't remember the exact number, but it was a lot of goods purchased.
Credit cards or stuff?
Yeah,
They can't even sell it. There's too many.
They can't, exactly. I'm so sorry, you had a question for a while.
No, because I was actually talking about, I don't remember the application, but I know there's open cloud, but there are tools out there where you can achieve redundancy by sharing multiple different locations, where you're basically publishing your cloud and your work location, your home location, or whatever. So like, you're using the term private cloud, but my brain hasn't really gotten around it yet.
Okay.
But I know that there are some tools that are out there right now that are bringing those capabilities to life.
Basically, what we mean by private cloud is you're in charge of your data. And the way data is dealt with depends from solution to solution, but for the most part, data will reside in its original location, whether it's a hard drive, an external drive attached there, or public cloud provider.
I mean, in terms of cursors, I mean, I put most of my stuff like on Amazon S3.
Right.
Up to tier. So
Yes.
it's like for at least a year, it's there. You know?
Right.
So,
Okay. But that's still moving it to third party. But I'm afraid we're running out of time, but
So,
I'm so sorry. I'll chat with you after. And
you gotta take a soft one.
guys, thanks so much for hearing.